Hey team, this is Velasquez, and in this section we're going to go ahead and talk about political parties. So the question we're going to try to tackle this week is, how does the two-party system influence American democracy? So of course we need to ask ourselves, why do political parties matter today? So political parties perform many important functions, including recruiting candidates, educating the public, implementing policies. And I hope by the end of this unit, you're going to be able to understand it's important to see political parties function, what they stand for in order to be informed and a responsible citizen. So let's go ahead and dive into talking a little bit about what is a political party. So on the screen, you can see right now a political party, a group of people who seek to control the government through the winning of elections and holding public office. So the most successful political parties win an election day, right? That's the goal. When more of their fans or their members of their team come out to the polls. So it's interesting, the Constitution does not really provide for political parties, doesn't really mention them. Yet political parties are an integral part of the American democratic system. Political parties perform several important functions that no other body or institution of American politics does. So, of course, we'll talk about during this lecture the two major political parties in the U.S. currently. We'll explore Republican versus Democratic, and then also we'll be looking at the different parties within our country. All right, let's go and talk a little bit about the functions of political parties. So number one on the screen right now, you see nominating candidates for public office. That's really the major function, what we identify with. So the goal of each party, of course, is to select a candidate and present them to the voters. They also serve as a way to work with the candidate to help win elections. And the candidates represent the party members and help them spread the party's message or the party's platform, which we'll be talking about, right? Basically what they want to accomplish, their goals, and their perspectives of how the government should be operating for the people. Nominating is exclusive to political parties. No other group in the political process does this. So that's important to know, right? That's why political parties are so essential to our democratic form of government. Number two, as far as the functions, we would also argue that political parties inform and activate supporters. So a big part of this, right, is involving people in the political process. It gives them opportunities, it gives them education, right? You can get involved by campaigning for candidates. If there's a particular individual that you think would represent your community or your outlook or your issues, right? It gets you involved in that process. Taking stands on issues. So if they're talking about political issues, social justice issues, environmental issues, and then also criticizing the candidates or positions of their opponents, right? If they're engaged in debating issues, making sure that they're also bringing aware if there's a weakness or if there's an area of concern of the different political parties' platform or how they stand on a particular issue. So basically inform voters the way they want them to be formed. So we also have to know that a big part of this is also a little bit of advertising, right? Getting the word out, the message out, on which that party, that platform, or that particular candidate wants to achieve or bring their voice to our government. All right, another function of political parties, unite the government. So members of the political parties are connected because they're members of the same organization, right? If we're talking about the Democratic Party, talking about the Republican Party, and this can be a way to sort of link members at different levels of government to help them achieve different goals for the party. So if we're talking about a Democratic president, or if we're talking about a Republican governor, or we're talking about a Republican mayor, right? So our elected officials at different various levels, if we're talking about a Republican congresswoman, right? Sort of uniting them together and working together as a team, right, to try to get their party or position or platform in place. It also prompts the successful candidates to perform well in the office, because think about it, if they fail to do so, right, both the party and the candidate, the person actually in that seat, right, may suffer the consequence in future elections. So it really sort of, motivates everybody to work together, to be successful, to get the job done as promised, right, to the voters. Of course, the consequence of voters next election, next cycle, they're going to vote that candidate out of office in that case. Also, again, number four, influence policy or governing. So public officials are regularly chosen on the basis of the party. So Congress and state legislators have organized on party lines. So the term partisanship, I know you've definitely heard that term in recent news cycles and political conversations. So that's referring to government action based on a firm allegiance to a political party, right? If we're talking about partisanship, politics, or news sources, right? We're talking about if it's partisan, it's really biased or really loyal to that one particular position in some cases. So legislative and executive branches must cooperate in order to accomplish anything, right? That goes back to our discussion of the Constitution. So if we talk about our separation of powers, if we're talking about our checks and balances, our government is designed in a unique way that we must ensure cooperations. So in a perfect world, the political parties would provide a channel for these branches to actually work together in some way. And then number 5, what again is extremely important, we talk about something called as, political parties serve as a watchdog. So the party not in power closely watches the actions of the party in power. And I think you could see that very readily for last few cycles of, for example, presidents, right? If there's one particular candidate, or I should say president in power in a particular political party, right, the other side is very vocal to criticize, to downplay, to critique the issues that that particular president has put in place, or their platform, or their vision, whatever they've put in place for our country. And then vice versa. Our last cycle, right, currently we have President Trump, which is a Republican, and our last, again, president, we had a Democrat, which is Barack Obama. So we can definitely see evidence in the last several years, right, both at the same time. The other party is, again, make sure that the party out of power tries to convince the voters that they all should be making the decisions, right? They're the ones that should be back in power, and they're the ones that can fix it. They're the ones that can support the issue or make sure. So they're trying to convince the voters that they need to be sort of reelected or put in that position of power for government decisions. So it often makes those in power more responsive to the wishes and the concerns of the people. So in an ideal world, again, remember, if we're talking about voting, we're talking about power resides in the people. So when political parties serve that watchdog purpose, right, it's a way to sort of check that power, right, in making sure that the government is responding to the needs and the will of the people. All right, so before we start looking at the two-party system, and again, we can see on the screen the two major political parties that dominate American politics are the Democrats and the Republicans. I also want to introduce this concept of ideology. So when we say ideology or political ideology, we're talking about the basic beliefs about life, about culture, government, society. And usually when we kind of look at the political spectrum, we generally say people on the left, right, they have more of a liberal ideology, while people on the right of the political spectrum have more of a conservative ideology in that case. So political ideology gives a person a framework when looking at the government and public policy. It also gives a person a little bit of clues about which political party you identify with. So in recent decades, right, the Democratic Party has been more associated with liberals and moderate liberals, while the Republican Party is also more associated with conservatives and moderate conservatives, moderate being sort of in the middle. And these are the simple labels for very complex arrangements of different viewpoints on different issues. However, I also, guys, want you to think about, it might be more accurate to think about political ideology and party positions as almost like a web of connections and beliefs. It's not typically that one straight line. Again, it's definitely with various issues that are occurring in our country. So it is a little difficult to put sort of a label on it. Now, also on the screen, there's different political parties, we call them minor parties, or if we have a third party candidate, right? So some examples may include libertarian parties, Green Party, Communist Party, right? So different political groups, but generally speaking, we'll kind of keep our discussion about our two main political platforms. All right, so Republicans sometimes are referred to as the GOP, or you'll refer to as the Grand Old Party, and they're often represented by the color red and the symbol of the elephant. So the Republican Party, and again, these are just very general statements. We're just trying to understand. Again, there's different variances, but in general sense speaking, the Republican Party supports individuals' rights in opposition to large or intrusive government. So government being involved, government doing too much, government taking too much power, right? This party opposes too much government intervention, especially in the economy. Typically, again, Republicans do not believe government should burden or sort of, tie up business with excessive regulation, rules. Republicans generally, in general sense, prefer lower taxes, and they oppose taxing people that are very wealthy and significantly higher rates than poorer people.
9 most terrifying words in the English language are
I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
When it comes to the economy, Republicans tend to believe in the power of the free market to generate wealth. This is an idea espoused by Reagan's supply-side economics, colloquially known as the trickle-down theory. In this system, it's believed that low taxes for the rich will prompt them to invest in businesses, thus creating more jobs, causing the wealth to trickle down to the poor. This theory was most recently seen in the George W. Bush-era tax cuts for those making more than $200,000 a year. Today, this is accepted doctrine in the Republican Party. The most recent party platform, ratified in 2012, espouses the belief that any American who works hard, dreams big, and follows the rules can achieve anything he or she wants. As a result, Republicans don't believe in many social services like welfare or a single-payer healthcare system. Aside from Medicare and Medicaid, Republicans prefer to stick to private insurers. Repealing Obamacare is a crucial part of their platform. Republicans also tend to hold conservative views on social issues. Despite gay marriage bans being ruled unconstitutional in 2015, candidates like Ben Carson and Mike Huckabee have expressed their opposition to the idea. The 2012 platform opposes a redefinition of marriage and maintains an anti-abortion stance. Republicans are also known for supporting the military. Ever since Theodore Roosevelt's presidency, the GOP has advocated for American exceptionalism and intervention around the world. Republicans believe this is possible only through a strong military. Today, the platform advocates peace through strength, promoting American ideals of freedom and democracy while maintaining a formidable army.
All right, then we get to the Democratic Party. So typically the Democratic Party says kind of like we're greater together than we are on our own. So if everybody succeeds, right, everybody gets a fair shot, everybody does their fair share. Democrats believe that the government should generally take a bigger role, that government has a responsibility in providing social services and security to all Americans. Democrats would prefer to increase taxes on the wealthy and reduce taxes on poor Americans. They encourage a variety of government regulations to try to protect consumers in financial situations, housing, healthcare.
Advocate stricter government regulation on big business and larger participation in the social safety net. In March 2010, President Obama signed the Affordable Care Act into law, thereby increasing access to health care via government subsidies and decreasing the power of private insurers. He has also increased government subsidies for low-income families and even rolled out a program providing free internet. The party also champions the middle class and has generally supported labor movements and unions. They do this by promoting progressive tax plans in which wealthier members of society pay a higher percentage on their income than the poor or middle class. However, this isn't always the case. President Obama recently signed the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, which Democratic candidate Bernie Sanders has said will likely undercut U.S. workers. On social issues, Democrats are seen as being open to societal change, often helping those who face discrimination and poverty. Although they generally oppose undocumented immigration, they believe that the government should help those who want to immigrate while focusing on deporting dangerous criminals. The Democratic Party considers itself an ally for LGBT causes, citing the president's support for same-sex marriage. In addition, they believe in a proper separation of church and state, along with stricter gun control laws. And while both Republicans and Democrats have advocated for a strong military, Democrats in particular prefer diplomatic cooperation and collaboration over military force. The party platform emphasizes restoring America's image by restoring a relationship with its allies.
All right, team, we'll go ahead and pause here for today. This is just meant to be a brief introduction, and we'll be exploring political parties with a series of activities and discussions. All right, so stay tuned.